Okay, now I'm picking back up on this side and going to start adding the chocolate brown and just a tad of the raw sienna and the gold just because I want to. I'm going to try not to be too awfully heavy-handed at this point with the chocolate brown, but I sure do like it. I'm not doing right next to the sink yet because I'm going to just come back and do that after. I'm wanting a little bit of the pounce in here and a little bit of the smear in here. So I'm laying it down and then coming back over it. And I'm not even sure this is the sponge I want to use. I don't think I want the great big one. I'm going to switch sponges out. I think I'm going to go ahead and go to the bigger one. I'll show you this in just a second. I'm picking up, see, just a tad of that raw sienna, there's a tad of that other brown, and there's just a pinch of gold. That other brown there's a little bit too much of. Get that off. This sponge is wet. I've not worked with a wet sponge, but these didn't dry overnight. This was, you know, the one that I used yesterday. So, same thing. The thing with adding those other paints in is that they're thicker and they're going to be raised on here. So you want to be careful with that because it's going to dry raised if you leave it raised. So I'm going to keep all of that in mind and spread it out just a tad. But I'm just wanting that to just barely pick up here and there, because it'll look more natural that way and then tie into my cabinets. And remember that as you come up or down one of the sides, to go ahead and carry up from there. This chocolate brown is, and I just got that on my light switch and I'm not going to worry about it, but it's, it really, you know, brings this into a warm tone. Although the brown feldspar did the same thing yesterday to tone down from the Inca gold. Being a little more careful around these edges. I could probably come back with my little sponge now that I used on the other side and see if this is gonna, oh, sorry about that, help any here with getting up into the crevices some. Probably need a bigger piece on there. It's not doing what I want it to exactly. Kind of dabbing in and out with it now. Making sure that there aren't any like straight lines showing from where, when you dab on one side and it comes down on the other side, if you're not careful, it'll leave too much of a blended area and cause itself to stick out more. This is just the other damp sponge, and I'm seeing if it'll take some of that off. Do the same thing with a paper towel. That's pretty. But I definitely need a little more something on there now. What I do at this point is look for larger splotches of the color underneath and put some of the next color right in the middle of that to sort of break it up. But we want the larger areas interdispersed more or less with the smaller blended areas. Remember, don't push it, don't start twisting until you get it all the way off there. I got a little twisted area there that now I have to doctor with. In the end, we still want some of each color to peek through. We still want some of the lighter Inca Gold to peek through. We still want some of the brown feldspar. We still want some of the black. So we're not trying to cover every little thing. But we are wanting to make sure and get it on this ledge as it travels over. And it's really, really hard to tell at this point what you're going to get. It's really important, and I learned this with freaking out from the Inca Gold. Let it sit and completely dry before you'll know what the actual color is going to look like. don't freak out at any point. Because it's all layers and you can always add more, lighten it up, darken it up. All of those things can happen in the next layer. Make sure and get up next to the sink, around this front, and that some of the pieces are coming over that ledge. Now I'm looking for areas that I want to make sure and cover the large under pieces of. When I have areas like this, I don't know if you can see it well, but there's 3 big splotches side by side, and that's where I was trying to be careful around that plug. I'll just come back with some of the lighter over those later if it doesn't dry looking how I want it to. I'm not going to try to overly fix it right now and end up with a big smear. Going over this a lot because there's a large hump there of the gold and of the raw sienna that I'm wanting to knock down and blend a little. Sometimes I think it looks really, really good when there's an overly blended area just through the middle, because that, or through anywhere, because that also brings a natural look to the piece more than, you know, having a large round block area. And it'll give us a good place for a vein later should we decide to put one. I like it a lot. Let's see if I can go ahead and do something to this. And smear that through there, because if I'm trying to spread that up, it's going to need to go in that crevice. I like it. I'm not going to want this as dark as that, so that it doesn't look like 3 lines going through. But we're still going to darken it a tad. Same thing out of this corner. Getting that tone mimicked up the sides the same as it is on the bottom. I'm thinking about where we might want that shading to come out up here. And I'm just placing a little bit of it on so I'll remember where I want my shading to be. And here I can tell where these were this way, so I may as well put a little in, and that'll have a little bit of a foundation of what we want going on. Not wanting them so close together that it makes the whole thing look like it's got stripes. I know I'm out of the range here. As much as I hate to, I'm going to get beside the sink now. This is the hardest part. And I should have just taken the sink off because it's very simple, but I didn't, so no sense in whining about it now. Does that. really believe at this stage, having the sponge a little bit damp is helping me to get better placement of the areas that I'm trying to get better placement to. The sponge is more flexible, I guess I should say. Okay, think. Here's what I'm gonna do. I have this small, long, skinny sponge. I'm gonna cut it in half. And I'm looking for the pointiest area of it. And I'm gonna try putting my paint on that way. See if I can get into the corners better this way. And this little down piece. And no, I cannot. That's so weird. Because you think, oh, I'm gonna get into that crevice, and it just doesn't do it. Unless you push it, which then puts it on both surfaces and gets it all over. We're just going to skip an area, do an area, and go with it. Well, I might have just learned a lesson. When you are gentle, which is not my strong point, but we know this from using a palette knife. When I'm gentle and I barely lay it there, and I'm not trying to push like a mad demon, force it to go in there whether it wants to or not, it works. How about that? How about that? You gotta have plenty of paint on there. Of course, you don't want it to just stop there and look silly, so we'll come out a little bit with it. That's wonderful. Feel a lot better about that. So let's do the same over here. I'm going to have to force it in a few areas. The sponge came off right there. Okay, we're going to let that dry and come back to it if we need to. Yay! I'm going to go ahead and put a little more paint on here. Really like how that smeared areas look. Being careful as my sponge gets more and more saturated that it still has all the holes that it needs available to give the designs that we need. Like that was too much and that was too much. We'll use that as an indication of where we need to smear, right? Varying this because it has the dot of the raw sienna on there, and I don't want that all being in a row. See if I can bring you a little bit closer. Okay, I think I have good placement. So now we're gonna start using it to tone in, remembering to switch up the direction of the sponge every little while. Watching each placement, seeing if I'm leaving any kind of swirls or anything that I need to go back and correct. Any loud splotches that I'm going to want to come back and blend, kind of off-put some of this here. Remembering to come around those edges. Remember, here's where I had a idea that I would do a smear so that it would appear to come off of that area. So we're just going a little heavier with our down plant of the sponge right there. Pulling a little off, putting a little on. Pounce. And then we'll come back and do a little more of this and then thinner. Looking for the areas where I have the other colors dispersed, making sure to flatten those out. Speed up a little. I have so much sort of smeared through here. I'm wanting to make sure and go through and put some of the darker areas back through there. Try to stand in 2 or 3 different areas to check it out in the light, because you may not see something in some ways that you see in another. Due to the way the reflection hits it. I'm double checking for any areas that don't have the tone of the brown. Any areas that have too rhythmic of a sponge pattern. I like it. Okay, so I am going to continue from here, going all the way around, doing the same thing, and then we will come back afterward and decide if we need more or less of any color and how and where to blend and make that happen. I'll share it with you here. Thanks.